Diversity that Atlanta, America is experiencing. So please welcome Atlanta City Council President Doug Shipman.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Atlanta. I want to start by just saying that in moments like this, it is vital that we know that we're not alone.
Yeah.
That we are not the only ones who are concerned, who are worried, and who are acting. So would you just take a moment and look around into the eyes and the faces of our allies? Because these are the folks who we will depend on in the days and the months and the years ahead to make sure that we are headed in a direction that we need to be. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
I have the pleasure of serving Atlanta, and I will tell you a very hard truth. I do not hear enough about the climate crisis every day in my office. I do not have enough people calling me and telling me that they want to see our dollars invested differently. I do not have enough people calling and telling me that we need transit over roads. I do not have enough people calling me and telling me that we need MARTA to invest in transit, not parking lots.
Do better, MARTA!
Enough people calling me and telling me that we need more solar on our rooftops and we need Georgia Power to
MARTA
stop
needs to do
blocking
better,
that solar.
honestly.
I do not have enough people calling me and telling me to invest Atlanta's largest surplus in history in climate. I do not have enough people calling me and telling me that the zoning rewrite that is happening at the city right now must have density so we have better climate in our housing growth. I do not have
As someone who
enough
takes MARTA
folks
every
calling me and
fucking
telling me
day,
these things.
it's not good.
And when I talk to my contemporaries
Don't take the MARTA.
at the county level, at the Public
Listen.
Service Commission level, in our state legislature, sadly, they tell me the same thing. They are not hearing enough. But you know what? That can change starting today. That can change starting tomorrow. As much as my fellow speakers have accurately outlined the dumpster fire that is Washington, D.C., there are so many opportunities to do something right here, right now, to make sure that we are investing the dollars that have been sent to us in the last few years quickly and efficiently in our water infrastructure, in our tree canopy, in our transit, to make sure we are actually investing those dollars on the ground. I would ask each of you to, on Monday or tomorrow or today, to call, text your MARTA board representative, text your state representative, text your county commissioner, text your city council member, and text your local mayor or county executive with very specific requests around transit, around energy, around environment, around all of the things that we can do on the local level to make sure that our climate is protected here.
Amen.
I'm sorry, but as
We
someone
know,
who takes MARTA every
as
day,
Congressman
it is
Johnson
not
said,
good.
that in
Do
Atlanta,
better.
air, water, and heat is how we are feeling our climate crisis right now. Let's bring our own kind of public heat to our public officials to make sure a difference is made going forward. Thank you all
Please
very much.
make MARTA better.
Thank you so much, Council President Shipman. We will be moving on to our next speaker, Mr. Daniel Blackman. Daniel Blackman is a distinguished public servant and environmental leader who made history as the first Black man to serve as regional administrator for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency under the Biden-Harris administration. In this role, he led federal environmental policy and regulatory efforts across the Southeast, focusing on environmental justice, climate resilience, and sustainability. He later served as the first ever senior advisor for STEM recruitment and diversity at the EPA. With a career dedicated to advancing environmental justice and fighting for civil
This is
and
the
human
guy that
rights,
they're talking
Daniel
about.
Blackman continues to be a leading voice in shaping a more sustainable and just future for us all. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Daniel Blackman.
I'm gonna go back to my Moral Monday days where we used to say forward together, not one step back. So when I say forward together, you guys say not one step back. You ready? Forward together.
Not one step back.
Let them hear it in the Capitol. Forward together.
Not one step back.
One
Do
more
the
time
chant.
for everyone else in the
Everyone
city
on the
that's
line, do the
normalizing
chant.
everything we're seeing in Washington. Forward together.
Not one step back.
Give yourselves a hand clap. I'm excited. I'm very excited to be here. Look, I had some pretty radical mentors. Lowry and Reverend C.T. Vivian and Congressman John Lewis and Zenona Clayton, and so y'all too quiet. Y'all too quiet. I mean, you know, it's my daughter's birthday today. I made time to come spend time with you guys.
Okay, yeah.
There are two things that we can't let sit within our society. The first is complacency and the second is fear. I'm going to say it again. There's two things that we cannot afford to let sit: complacency and fear. During the 50s and the 60s, well before my time, you know, there were men and women that marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And my generation for so long would always say, you know, that couldn't have been me. I wouldn't have let somebody do this or do that. You know, this is my generation's 1968. And when you understand that, first I want to speak to our elder statesmen and women that are here and say, it's incumbent upon you all to not allow us to forget about a past that is not too far away than we think. Because many of you remember that Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy died 61 days apart. Dr. King fighting for poor people in Memphis, and Bobby Kennedy in Appalachia on his way back to California fighting for poor folks, poor sanitation workers, with Dr. King in Appalachia, where Bobby Kennedy stood up for folks that were in coal mine workers and individuals that gave their blood, sweat, and tears. Black and white, young and old, all shared a commonality, which was poverty. And now we face the climate crisis today. And let me first tell you what is concerning beyond anything else. Because I recently left the administration, I know the people who've been given notice, husbands and wives, mothers and fathers that are responsible to pay for their daughters and sons' next semester of college. They've got to keep lights on. They've got family members that have to get their prescriptions filled. These are the people that the Musk-Trump administration is forcing to make a decision and leave and suffer. And I'm going to tell you now, I know personally, I had a conversation yesterday with a young lady that worked for me for the past 3 years, and she works under the umbrella of environmental justice at EPA, and she said, you know, I got one of those letters and I go, and she said, Mr. Blackman, what bothers me is not just that I have to give up my job, is that we were about to be deployed to California to help with the wildfires. And these are the things that the news doesn't always report. The individuals that are working hours and spending time away from their families to fight for individuals in Flint and in Jackson, Mississippi, and Lowndes County, Alabama, and Rockdale County, Georgia. These are individuals that are career employees that have given their lives and given their time and their energy to protect the environment, to protect frontline communities, by which many of those communities' funding that was promised to them under the previous administration has immediately stopped. What do we tell to the grassroots organizations and the individuals that have been on the ground to do in the midst of all that they're facing? And the first thing that I challenge each of you to do is reach in your pockets. I know you got calls every single day, every hour on the hour from the vice president to ask you to give to her campaign. I would ask you to find a local organization and contribute to that local organization that's still fighting without a federal grant, still fighting without a dime, and having workers and people that are coming up, showing up, some of you in these audiences that are working really hard to continue to protect our most vulnerable communities. And to put that into perspective, in Georgia alone under the Biden-Harris administration, over $50 million came into this state for our clean school bus program. Over $50 million. I grew up with asthma. My son plays college football and has an emergency inhaler on the sideline. So when you tell me that we're electrifying school buses to reduce the amount of emissions that compromise the lungs of our children, that matters. In states like Georgia, we got over $147 million for our water infrastructure. These are all things that they're saying has to go away. Let me put this into our Republican-run state that likes to say that they're anti-climate, but they took all our money for Rivian, they took our money for Q-Cells, they didn't deny the money. And when you think of what's going on now in our country, it's bigger than Democrat versus Republican. It's about right and wrong. It's about communities in rural Georgia. It's about communities like those in Juliet that are struggling with coal ash in their water. It's about families that are in areas like Dougherty County and Albany, where some of you may have been or may never have been, that haven't recovered since COVID. When we talk about the climate can't wait, it's not just about the air we breathe and the water we drink. It's about affordable housing. It's about communities that don't have the infrastructure money in place. It's about making sure that while we want to electrify our vehicles on the road, we can electrify public transportation to make it easier and more accessible for low and moderate income families that can't afford an electric vehicle.
Do better, Marta.
And I hope that while you all are here today, you understand that the fight is this Liberty Plaza should be full.
Exactly.
But I hope that you don't go and leave here and get some good Atlanta food and go home back to the comfort of where you are and who you are. I hope that you'll think about the people that may need to be here, that might be working their third job. I want you to think about people that don't understand the importance of voting, don't understand the importance of why elections like the Public Service Commission matter. Mr. Parker, he mentioned earlier about being in an energy burdened state. That's a very real situation when you have individuals that are struggling to keep their lights on, struggling to keep their jobs. And when we talk about climate, we can't talk over people. We have to speak to people. And I want that to be something that all of you take away from this conversation. How do we take very scientific, complicated things and simplify them to organize the masses? What we need now is not more silos and more groups and more organizations. What we need is for people like you all to help us bring our greater communities together. And it's important to do that because many of the communities that are struggling don't know that there are organizations like yours that are fighting for you. They don't know about organizations like the Georgia Conservation Voters and other organizations like Interfaith Power and Light. They don't know about the organizations that are fighting tooth and nail and fighting day and night to keep them open, to keep their homes safe, to keep their communities as protected as possible. So I want to leave you with two things, because I think this rally and the more we see it, the more I believe our communities won't be in a state of paralysis, right? Living in the shadow of the late, great Congressman John Lewis, who our friend Hank Johnson just mentioned about getting into good trouble. It's easy to say that. It's much harder to actually do it. And what does that actually mean? When you think about good trouble, it means not being complicit. Dr. King once said, in the end, we won't remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. So I hope that all of you that from the Obama administration to the Biden-Harris administration that kind of put the car in cruise control a little bit and got comfortable, I hope this begins to reinvigorate you. I see a couple of young people out here, and I'm telling you right now, they're watching. They're watching how we fight for their democracy. They're watching how we fight for their future. We can talk about the climate all we want, but they're watching how we treat each other. They're watching how we speak to each other. They're watching how we normalize an individual's name that I won't mention that's occupying the Oval Office. They're watching how we fight back. And with the attack on the censoring of books and televisions and media outlets, we have to turn our dinner tables back into places of organizing and conversation. Tell your kids to put their cell phones to the side and get with your neighbors, knock on doors, get to know people that are living next to you, because those are the people we have to fight with. Those are the individuals. My grandfather, I'm first generation. My family's from Barbados. So shout out to anybody who has Caribbean roots.
Jamaica!
So, my grandfather was a diplomat, and there's a sustainable goal that says we're well able to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own. In other words, if these young people here don't see us fighting for their future, then they're going to grow up in a space where they're going to comply. They're going to they're not even going to get to a point where they want to fight or stand up because they hadn't seen it. And they can only be a reflection of what they've seen. When I think about communities of color around the state, it doesn't exclude any other environment. It just reminds me that there's so many underserved communities that DEI has been weaponized against. And individuals that, like Frederick Douglass has this quote where he says, it's better to build strong boys than to repair broken men. And in our city, there's so many young people in communities that are broken, that need to be repaired. And I don't know if you're just here because you're in the audience or if you heard about the rally or somebody drug you here, but I'm telling you that you ought to stand up for the things you're seeing. Take everything you've heard from all of the speakers, including our representative that we're here from next, and take that home. Take that to your communities. Don't wait till the next governor's race, the next presidential election. Every day is an election day. Every day is an opportunity for you to speak your voice, to raise your concern, to fight back, and to do the work you need. The last thing that I want to say is that somebody mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was Doug or one of the other speakers we had, but I'm going to give all of you an assignment. Turn to somebody before you leave that you don't know, that you hadn't met. They don't have to look like you or be your age, but just turn to somebody before you leave and either exchange social media information or exchange something. This is not Tinder, so be very selective about what you do, okay? What I'm trying to say is just make a friend. Because here's what's going to happen. The only way we get these audiences larger is by making sure going forth we hold those people accountable to come back.
Yeah.
The next one is going to be, and I'm hypothetically speaking, the next fight may be for immigration.
Yeah.
If climate cannot support immigration, immigration can't support climate. And we do a really good job as progressives and as Democrats and as just really concerned citizens on organizing around our issue. And my challenge to you is the next rally you see, even if it isn't your issue, even if it isn't the climate, I want you to show up. I want you to show up in solidarity, and I want you to stand with people and let them know that your issue is my issue. And when you stand by them and you learn about the fear a first grader is living in because they're afraid that if they go home, their parents might not be home, you can't talk to somebody about climate that's hungry. You can't talk to somebody about climate if you can't understand their issue of immigration or their issue of living in a constant state of fear. And there's a word that I'm going to say to you guys that a lot of people have forgotten, and that's compassion.
Yeah.
And we can't allow nationalism to weaponize our country against each other. I wish you all the absolute best. There's a long journey ahead. There's a tremendous amount of work that has to continue to be done. But I truly believe that if we can make it through Jim Crow, if we can make it through the Civil Rights era, if we can make it through the Reagan era, the first Trump era, if we can make it through all these other things, if we stand together, if we fight together, we'll make it through this. Thank you all so much, and God bless you.
Thank you for joining.
Climate. Climate. Awesome. So as I introduce our final speaker, please remember that when she is done, that we will be taking a group photo. So I am so proud to introduce Georgia State Representative Rua Roman.
Hey y'all, how's everyone feeling this morning? Or is it afternoon? Yeah, afternoon now. Okay. Oh, 2 minutes until afternoon.
So
Thank you, first and foremost, for being here. Because showing up still matters. I keep hearing from so many people recently who tell me, you know, we tried it. We've marched, we've protested, we've called, we've emailed, we've texted, we've tried to meet with our members on whatever level it was, and it just doesn't matter. And I just kind of look, and then I kind of hang my head a little bit. Because it does matter. It matters more than I can ever begin to tell you. Because the amount of times that an email from someone inspired a conversation in my entire caucus about an issue that we weren't even tracking, I've lost count of the number of times that's happened. And it's because someone took the time to email, and then they got like 10 more people to email, and they got like 20 more people to email, and then next thing you know, the entire caucus is talking about it. And that is so important, because the reality is that these institutions are literally created to make it harder and harder to actually hear from you. We are only in session for 40 legislative days. Not 40 days like consecutively. I'm talking just 40 legislative days where we start our day for a couple hours for most of them, and then we might have a committee hearing or two. It's not enough. And I've been joking to people, I'm like, you know what? It feels like you got to babysit your government, and I'm sorry to tell you, but you really got...
Whoa, technical difficulty.
I think I can yell. Oh, there we go. It's back. Thank you. But it's true. You kind of
Sorry
have to
for the
babysit
technical
us a little
difficulties.
bit.
We're back.
But the reality is that this is a group project. This endeavor, this governing endeavor is a group project. And when all of us don't show up, the wrong people get to run around completely unfettered and smash a bunch of buttons and get to completely cut programs when it's illegal to do so, for one, and two, the people in charge of stopping them are not doing their jobs.
Exactly.
We need y'all to force people to do their jobs. It is literally that simple. Is it going to be 100%, a win rate? No. But the idea of letting our opposition just run around without anyone stopping them, to me, that's untenable and it's unacceptable.
Totally.
So let me tell you a story. Not really a story, but more like an anecdote. This is now my third session. I have heard the word climate change from members on the floor maybe once, twice, in the 3 times that we've been here. I sit on the Energy, Utility, and Telecoms Committee. The way that people twist themselves into pretzels not to talk about climate change, including lobbyists who know climate change exists, is just beyond the pale. Worse yet, the few times that anybody talks to me about climate change, it's to come and tell me as the younger member that it doesn't exist, a lot of the data is just incorrect, and that I need to just look at the facts. The facts, quote unquote. I don't understand what facts they want me to look at. Every single year just gets hotter and hotter. Our peach crops have died 2 years in a row now. I am a very slow runner, and I've run the Peachtree Road Race twice now, in a row. And both years it's been black flagged. It touches everything from the most
Fracking
important
in Pennsylvania.
environmental things like our food
We
sources
don't want
to our
it.
hobbies like being able to get outside. A lot of people, it is now too dangerous for them to go outside multiple days a year because of smog, because of pollen, because of severe weather patterns. And we keep being told, oh, don't bring up climate change, it's not real. Or worse yet, if you do bring it up, you're mocked because it's not real. But I'll be honest with you, I do think we're in a crisis right now, in a lot of ways, on every level. And I'll be honest with you again, we need you. A lot of times when people say, hey, why should I spend my time calling and emailing? It doesn't work. I'm like, you don't understand, we need you. Those of us that believe in this, those of us that believe in fighting on everything from climate change to oppression of minorities to illegally taking over our data, all of that. We need all of you to echo our sentiments to our colleagues across the entire political spectrum. I don't care if you're a blue dot in a sea of red or you are in the bluest district in the state. Everybody needs to be pressuring those who represent them to do better. Everybody's in a state of shock right now, and we need to get out of it. We need y'all to shock us out of it. So truly thank you for being here, and I need y'all to start going through your contacts and messaging all your friends and asking them, hey, what are the issues you really care about? Oh, is it climate? Is it immigration? Is it whatever? All right, let's build a coalition together and show up together on these issues that we all care about. And hey, let's make a group chat about it. And hey, I heard about this thing. Can you send this email today? Can you send this email today? Can you send this message today? Oh, there's a committee hearing. If you're able, go down to the committee hearing. If you can't come down, submit testimony. Y'all, the Republicans are here all the time. And I'm not just talking about like legislators. I'm talking about their voters. They show up to committee hearings. They submit testimony. They protest. They protest each other. I'm serious. I know this is like really controversial to say as an elected official, but honest to God, no seat should be uncontested ever again. Not one, both in the primary and in the general. Because it's true. This is how you hold your elected officials accountable. And as much as it sucks, you gotta babysit us sometimes. But it works because it really pushes people to do better, and it really increases awareness of what matters to people. Not just the ones that show up every day with their lobbyist badges, but the people that we actually represent. If you're not getting town halls, demand them. If you're not getting callbacks, demand them. Although, give us a little bit because we don't really get staff, but you know what I'm saying. But please, 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 in this moment of shock and awe and everything seeming to be just too much all at once, there are way more of us than there are of them.
Amen.
Way more. And if anybody tries to convince you that your efforts don't matter, then look them in the eye and ask them why they are working on behalf of the opposition. Because that's what that is. Anyone who tells you not to take action because it doesn't matter is just as good as the opposition. And I don't say that lightly. I know there's a lot of debate on this, but I mean this sincerely. If I go to a caucus meeting, I'm the only person saying something, it's not really gonna land. But if I go to a caucus meeting and I say something after 100 people emailed a bunch of our members, people perk up and listen. So I implore you, even on the darkest days, do not give up, fight back harder, and be shameless about the things you believe in. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Representative Roman, and to all of our amazing speakers today. If we can all give them one more round of applause, please. Awesome. So, as I promised, we will be taking